money's a concept, not a spreadsheet. Money's an energy, not just a number. If you feel stuck in this recession or potential recession or the shaky economy, what is it that brings out the best in who you are, that adds the most value in the world, and find that co-creator to get past it. When in recession, we go to isolation. Isolation is the relative to scarcity. Collaboration is the relative to abundance. It began really when I was 15 and I started a business detailing cars. And I won money with it. Third place for the state when I was 16, and that came with some money. Then I was in, second place, won 1,000, then first place when I was a senior. So yeah, they had like Entrepreneur of the Year for 18 and under, and I won $5,000 in the end when I was 17 for that. And I grew up in a small town. My dad was a coal miner, so I wanted to get out of that town, and I thought the best way to do it would be to invest money. I lived in Utah, and I lived in a small town of like 12,000 people. So even though Salt Lake is such a small city in the reality of things, to my mind at the time, it was big and intimidating. I was afraid to drive there. I mean, I grew up in this really rural community, in a really loving community. I mean, there's people from my hometown still cheering me on and excited about everything. And so I even did comedy and saw people that I hadn't seen since I was 18 years old show up for me. So I want to say, like, I love that I grew up in Price, even though it's a coal mining, blue collar town, that there's some small mindedness there because of the environment. So they're kind of like cheering on as I go through this. But I wanted to get to the city, and the way I thought of doing that was investing my money. But my mom wouldn't sign off as a custodian because they put cash in coffee cans and put it in the cellar. Because when I was 18, I invested in the market not knowing anything about it. And it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but fortunately I was asking professors and caught on in 3 months, so I had a very minimal risk and downside. But that led me to interviewing people, figuring out, where do I invest this $5,000, which wasn't a lot of money, but it was to me. And that led me to talk to bankers that were in my fraternity that had graduated a decade before. And I eventually got offered an internship at 19, not realizing it was more like a sales opportunity. When the market went down in 2000, this is what I think qualifies me for it more than anything. There's two factors. Number one, when the market went down, I asked questions that almost no one else in the field was asking at the time. Why are we accepting this as just part of the process? That you have to lose money, take risk, wait long periods of time, defer your life. I was just curious and inquisitive because I had early people in my life say, the better the questions you ask, the better your life becomes. One of my unintentional mentors, meaning he thought I was an annoying pissant at that age, is now paying me to come to my event for financial advisors in December, which was really cool that turnaround happened. But it's because of that curiosity. And when the market went down, I told everybody to cash out and find a different advisor or wait for me to find a better way. And I decided, because I wasn't married yet, that I was going to fly and meet with whatever the best minds were, wherever I had to go once a month while I was still in college. And I was able to figure out what the ultra wealthy were doing, number one, which was completely different than what I was teaching. And the second thing is, for whatever reason, I have almost like this photogenic or photograph, whatever it is, memory. If I learn something about finance, I can remember it. I can just remember it and dissect it and question it. And 20 years later, it's like I read it that morning. And so I can't do that in technology. I remember I can't even do that in accounting. Like, I once went and interviewed for this accounting job at Accenture in LA. And they used so many acronyms I'd never heard of. And they still offered me the job. I'm like, I'm so ill-equipped for this job at 20, but I was just interested of like what's out there and possible. It was part of that journey. So for whatever reason, I can remember anything about 401ks, IRAs, insurance, interest rates, all these things that seem, like really confusing, like collateralized debt obligations and derivatives. And what I found out through most of it is designed to be confusing. And it's part of the reason people are fearful of their money, because they feel intimidated. And then when they feel intimidated, they hand their money over without understanding how it will work or why it will work, which robs them of three things: peace of mind, confidence, and clarity. And when we don't have peace of mind, confidence, and clarity with our money, it creates internal stress and strife that leads to a heaviness in our life. And so I really started to understand that money is a concept, not a spreadsheet. Money's an energy, not just a number. And when you start to see through that and ask different questions, you start to understand how it really works. And so curiosity and ability. I don't know why that was my ability, but I'm glad it was. I always had this philosophy. I don't care who's right, I care what's right. And so I had to apply that to myself as well, which means I have to be willing to say I was wrong, and these were the lessons I learned. And when I lost a lot of money in 2008, it was crazy because I wrote Killing Sacred Cows, which said, we're overly emphasizing net worth, we're overly emphasizing risk. I didn't see the blind spot of I was over leveraged in real estate that I didn't love, that I didn't want to deal with. Because real estate to me meant I meet with attorneys, I meet with bankers, I meet with, property managers. I'm not actually feeling any level of value. I'm simply in this transactional cycle because everybody said, oh, the wealthy invest in real estate. But what type of real estate would be part of the question, but more importantly, I was like, no, it's about our investor DNA. It's about who we are and how we relate to the investment. The number one thing that helped me through 2008 was my morning ritual, 100%. The way that I framed it for myself was, if I don't do this first thing in the morning, I'm going to enter the day exposed to scarcity. Because everything in the narrative was, this is melting down, the economy might not make it, where the FDIC is tapped out, banks are failing. My organization was like, hey, people aren't buying like they bought before. They want to sit on the sidelines and see what happens here. And so for me, I had a burst of content that I created during that time because pain forced me to look at things I wasn't looking at before, and taking the morning to journal, to meditate, to work out, to like, I just did a lot of writing at that time that was with a paper and pen in the journal, and started to think through things of like, what did I need to learn that this is showing and teaching me? And what else are people experiencing that they were exposed because they thought everything was always going to work, and when it doesn't? And then who's going to hold on for too long? And so I just had like all the questions that I wouldn't have asked during a time where everything was taking off, really had me do this reflection. And people were starting to really experiencing like so much difficulty that I became 10 times more effective as a financial educator. Because now, A, I felt it personally, so it wasn't just theory. So I had a new level of compassion. B, content that couldn't have been created without that started to arise, and then it gave me this conviction so I could show up so much more powerfully than just an idea, because I was watching firsthand what was happening to families. Like, look, the number one reason people list for divorce is financial. That's the number one reason. It's not that financial is really the reason. It's that we stop dreaming about a possibility of a better future because it's so heavy of what's happening in the moment. And unfortunately, most of those heavy moments come from mistakes in the past. And then people start to judge themselves and their worthiness based upon their mistakes. But look, mistakes are just part of life. It's just that when we don't seek help, when we don't start our day by putting on that armor of abundance to start being like, look, I've got to take care of who I am and grow as a human being to be able to see past that. Because when we start to have a vision bigger than our problems, we move forward in a way that's almost like a crusade. When our problems rise above our vision, it's because we don't start our day properly. It's because we don't ask for support. It's because we don't know how to ask the right questions to ourselves. And so, look, I just went through a painful situation selling my company, of something I identified myself with in a lot of ways, but the amount of content I've created in the last few months is insane because I had to question things that I had never questioned before. So if we look at recessions, the biggest problem is if someone doesn't do their morning ritual, they'll buy into the self-fulfilling prophecy of everything going bad and wrong, and the world is going to give really terrible advice. Like, the number one piece of advice in 2008 was people should stop eating out. Like, that was going to solve the recession. Like, don't go eat out, save that money. I'm like, yeah, don't go out and enjoy life. Stay home and be scared. And what starts happening is, look, early on, the people that really knew the recession was happening were people that were in real estate and mortgages. But the rest of the world started hearing about that before they had any impact in their life, and they changed their behavior of one of scarcity and shrinking rather than value creation and expansion. And that's because they didn't really develop themselves, and they bought into this narrative, and that story became everything they saw, heard, and experienced. Therefore, it was a downward spiral. So this is the thing. If we go back to the Great Depression, Depression, which is one of the worst, experiences that someone could probably go through. Well, yeah, a third of that was right. A third of the people had different rules. They lost their homes because you could just call a note due, which you can't do in today's world. And there was a third of the people that worked twice as hard to maintain their lifestyle. So they just grinded out, right? But a third of the people actually thrived during the Great Depression. And here's why. The bigger the problem, the bigger the payoff. And those people that were able to manage themselves and become a leader and say, we've got solutions, follow me, they led people out of that situation and they made a huge amount of money. There was more millionaires made during that time, adjusted for inflation, than any other time in America's history. And so when we understand, this was from a Professor Gregory at the University of Washington, a third were really close to what the numbers were: thrive, maintain, and just be the ones that we saw the pictures of. So when we think about those pictures of a Great Depression, we start to manifest that in our world if we don't manage our morning, and if we don't think about value creation, serving others, and solving problems. And this is what happens in a recession. We get isolated and feel alone. And then we're in these patterns that those thoughts just percolate of why things can't work, why they won't work. It decimates our confidence. There is no peace of mind. We start losing sleep. We start to feel like a failure. And then ultimately, we lose that clarity of how to add value in the world. And it's value that leads all money. Value creation first, money follows. So really, I'm telling you, during a recession, the best thing you could do is do your miracle morning and ask for support. Ask for help by peers and mentors so that they ask questions that you wouldn't ask yourself, and it can help you get out of that. We think it's because the economy is shrinking and money is the problem, but no, it's how we view ourselves and our role in the economy that becomes the bigger problem. Like, look, there's two really precious forms of capital that people don't tap into enough. We think financial capital is the answer, but it's just a byproduct of two more precious forms. Number one, mental capital. Our ideas, knowledge, wisdom, insights, strategies, and tools. We multiply that by our relationship capital: networks, organizations, mentors, friends, and family. The bridge between mental and relationship capital is what I would call business, and the currency of business is value creation, serving others, solving problems. So we might be one idea or one relationship away from the next level of prosperity, but we have to be willing to ask for support. The problem is, let's say that you're just a hard-charging entrepreneur that's used to just pushing your way through, hustle, grind, and work. But then you have this new problem, and you think you're going to just push your way through it when the rules have changed or the game has changed, or and so this is where being like, well, what could I do to add value in a different way, to serve more people, to solve bigger problems? Like, who would I have to become? And a lot of it is we have to let go of who we identified ourselves in the past, because it was like in my 20s, I could do things I hate because I could just force my way through it. In my 40s, that's exhausting. It'll be like drinking. You're just going to have a hangover tomorrow and you're going to need extra sleep and you're going to want to watch TV because you're so exhausted because you're doing things you hate to do. And the world has convinced us if we just trade our time for money, and if we work hard enough, we're going to be okay. But if we work hard with the wrong philosophy, we have limited results. And that's where people are stuck and trapped. And it's recessions that expose wrong philosophy. Because if you have a good philosophy and you design a life where you get to enjoy it and create the most value, you might make adjustments as economies change, but you don't have to make overhauls. Those overhauls exist when we're overly reliant upon something we don't control, like a stock market or a crypto market, or we get speculative and we think that we're the genius because real estate's going up, but we know nothing about it. And so what recessions do is they expose our ignorance to ourselves and the people we serve. And usually what happens is success breeds mediocrity. It sounds weird, but what I mean is we get distracted and derailed because as it starts to happen, people start saying, you should do this, and you're so good, you should do that. And we get derailed and distracted because we lose focus, and that's fine when all ships are rising with the tide, but then as Warren Buffett said, we find out who's swimming naked when it rolls back. And the recession, it rolls back, and the people that make it through are the ones that stayed focused and true to who they are and not distracted and invested in things they know nothing about. And far too many people are invested in things they know nothing about because it sounds cool, because it sounds seductive and sexy, and they could talk about their gains. But the reality is those are short-term gains because we know nothing about them. And we see these times where people are just invested in crazy stuff because, like you said, well, I got to invest in real estate. God's not building any more land. I'm like, have you never been to Hawaii where the volcanoes keep extending the land? But there's these sayings and these mantras that usually get tapped into where we have a fear of missing out or we get greedy and then we lose sight of who we are. And then the recession brings us back into focus to say, what are we really going to do? And how do we really want to do this? And what can I learn? And those people that learn actually grow at exponential rates. Those that don't repeat the same mistake. This is the thing. People often say they're committed when they're only interested. Like, this is like, imagine I'm in Vegas and I call my wife. I'm like, babe, I just want to let you know I love you so much. I'm 83% committed to this relationship. Here's my formula for commitment. It's a very clear formula. Like, when I decided I want to do comedy, I was like, I didn't just want to do comedy. After 2 years, I was like, I want to do it at the highest level. Like, I want to do it like professionally. And so I had to start with co-creation. Who did I know that was extraordinary at this, that could show me what it's like to be extraordinary and help accelerate my results? So I always look for a co-creator anytime I want to do something. If you don't have a co-creator, the recession might eat you up. And this could just be a coach and a mentor, or this could be a business partner, or this could be a spouse. It's just the person that you get out of the loops and that can show you the way and see what's best in you. Second, we've got to eliminate our escapisms. Recessions bring escapisms. Escapisms are where people get caught up in like a TV show or a movie and that character rather than their own reality, because it's hard sometimes to deal with people. But if we escape into that, we never know the price of a real relationship, especially one with ourselves. So it's easy to turn our focus to the news or social media or some other way to numb out when we don't want to face reality. But all progress begins with truth and reality. So if we could face it, then we eliminate those escapisms, which might be sleeping too much, drinking too much, whatever it is that keeps us from what we want to do. Then the third thing is, when you build momentum, then you delegate to the things when I say delegate, you delegate roles, ROLES. You delegate a role to someone, freeing you up so there's no micromanagement, so you could dedicate to that craft. And then fourth, you collaborate. Anything world-class requires collaboration. So in comedy, I called runner-up on Last Comic Standing. I had to deal with my escapisms because I wanted to just watch comedy rather than do comedy some of the time. Because I was like, am I good enough to do this? And looking for evidence where I might not be good enough. And I was like, no, I'm going to set up a comedy club in my basement from 5 to 6 every day, 5 days a week. I'm doing comedy, whether it's on Zoom or whether people show up at my house, because I'm not going to go to comedy clubs and miss out on family time. And then I was like, all right, I got to delegate things. So I'm not going to do management and operations and Wealth Factory. I'm going to offload those things so I can dedicate to this craft. And then collaboration was bringing in Marty Callner, who won an Emmy with Seinfeld and did Steve Martin's first comedy special all the way to The Hall on Netflix that came out last year that celebrated the Hall of Fame for comedy for the first time for Richard Pryor and for Robin Williams, who he did a bunch of his specials. So I got the world-class people through collaboration because I dedicated to the craft. So right now, if you feel stuck in this recession or potential recession or this shaky economy, what is it that brings out the best in who you are, that adds the most value in the world? And find that co-creator to get past it. Find time by eliminating your escapisms, and then as you build that momentum, delegate, and then when you're really ready, you collaborate. We have to get to a world of collaboration, but when we're in recession, we go to isolation. Isolation is the relative to scarcity. Collaboration is the relative to abundance. We have to think about serving others, solving problems, and adding value in a collaborative effort, and that takes being more abundant and also allowing for other people to support us. When we're addicted to just solving things ourselves, that's fine in good times. It's the poison in a tough time. You've got to be willing to say, man, I don't have this thing figured out and I wish I did. But if I come in with that and I ask questions, you're like, well, here's how I did my book, and you're sharing the best of who you have. And then all of a sudden there's more wealth in the world, not less. People think they got to hide from their best ideas or not share them because they'll be stolen. I feel like ideas are stolen from the universe when we hide it from the rest of the world. But if you put it out there, then you get supported and people can come to your aid and you can inspire people. We need in these times more than ever vision. Vision is the rarest commodity in the world. People that will create a vision that's so compelling, other people will rally behind them. And I think of vision like when the Wright brothers said, if birds can glide for long periods of time, we can too. And people are like, whoa, these guys are crazy, but I love it. I'd love to support something like that because I want to witness a miracle, because I want to be part of something great, because I want to have a story that's worthy of telling my friends and my kids and my posterity. But most people go, well, how much time do I have, how much money, and how much ability? These three limiting factors, time, money, ability, are only limitations when we do too much on our own. If we think we have to do things by ourselves, we get limited by those factors. If we think that we can be inspiring and we're bold enough to speak that vision into existence, like I want to inspire 1 billion people through entertainment, because entertainment's the gateway to transformation, so I can help restore love to humanity and put money in its proper perspective, not as something to worship, but as a byproduct of purpose. Well, that's something that I'm up to in the world of entertaining to educate, right? Do I know how to do it? No. But by speaking into existence, other people show me the way. They show up in my aid. They show up because they want to rally around that, because nobody wants to trade their time for money. Nobody wants to work in jobs they hate. We're looking for leaders that inspire. That's what's going to get us through any rough economy. And I know there's tons of messed up things that happen in the economy. Printing of money, taxes could raise, interest rates are all over the place. If we get caught up in what's wrong with the world, there will always be a problem. No matter what's solved, another problem appears. Worry about yourself and your home and your tribe. Don't worry about the world, because the only way we make any impact is by taking care of ourselves. Your miracle morning, add value to the people that you know, learn from the people that are peers and mentors, and apply that in the world. And that formula with co-creation, elimination, delegation, and collaboration, you marry those two things together, you'll be rock solid. What's people's money personality? What's their money persona? And I didn't have the answer. I saw rudimentary stuff out there like saver, spender, giver, avoider, I was like, it's got to be more than that. Because in 2008, I found myself in a place where I was over leveraged, and my wife was like, why did we get in this place? I didn't ever ask for all this. And I was like, man, I didn't utilize her skill set as someone that is a planner, because I was basically a creator, and a creator without a planner can get off the rails pretty quick. And so I was like, wait, I've always looked at it as I'm the gas, she's the brakes, but the reality is I'm the gas and she's the steering wheel. And so once that happened, I really started diving in and understanding what are people's money personas, because this is really the hidden factors that determine success or failure when it comes to our money. And it took a long time just to research. So I started writing the book just over 7 years ago, once I had the basic idea of the pitfalls. But then it took me a couple of years to say, well, what are the winning sides? What are the good pieces of that? And I wrote the words in this book. There was no ghostwriter. I mean, I had amazing editors and a brilliant team that way. But and it took me writing and rewriting. And the reason I wrote it is because our relationship to money is really a reflection of the relationship to ourselves. And if we don't heal that relationship, understand that relationship, then we're going to be chasing money at the expense of life forevermore. Either scared and holding on to it, playing not to lose, or running from something or running somewhere at the expense of today, playing to win. And the reality is we can create a game worth winning that creates a life we never want to retire from, that creates a win along the way, because the win's in the work and the experience and the quality of life along the way. And I didn't see anyone talking enough about love when it came to money, and talking about quality of life when it came to lifestyle. And so if we could understand money and have the right frameworks, then we can have an understanding of ourselves and stop chasing love by earning more, and start having the earning be because we already have love in our life, and the byproduct is we add more value in the world, and it flips everything upside down. So it was, to me, this is my seminal work. I will spend 20 years putting this in people's hands, inspired by the great Hal Elrod, putting however many years it takes to get Miracle Morning in every household. This is the book that I'm putting that level of commitment in. And so, yeah, there's money persona quizzes that come with it. There's understanding your money personas. There's a comedy special that people can download eventually if they buy the book now. Yeah, they can get the book now. It's at moneyunmasked.com. But some of the bonuses may not be coming out till later. So you might end up with the bonus, you'll get the money persona quiz right now, but I've been building out a tool for people to really dive into their money personas with an audio. We're going to bonus that. I just don't know when it will. It's finished. It's just not up on the platform yet. And the comedy special is fully finished. 8 Emmy winners on the crew. It went phenomenally well. It's called The American Ream. They'll get access to that as well as the bonuses for getting Money Unmasked. It just might be that they get them 30 days from now, 60 days from now. I mean, I sold my company, so we're a little bit more of a nimble, smaller team that takes a little bit longer to get a few things done. I think that this is probably different than what people would ever hear around the economy. And here's the thing. A lot of people want you to believe you need to be diversified when it comes to money. That's diversification if you don't focus. You focus, you maximize, and then you protect all along the way. If we get involved in too many things, our energy gets scattered, our time gets scattered. Even if you're like, oh, I'm just investing in this, you still put thoughts into that. You still, if it goes down, it might impact your mindset. Far too many people have too many things with their money rather than really dialing it in. And there's much easier ways. And I think Money Unmasked helps a little bit with that. And then, I've got a YouTube channel where I'm releasing videos all the time around this topic because that's the quickest way to get stuff out there. So, follow me there, subscribe there as well. Hey, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And if you're enjoying these videos, well, there's good news. More where that came from. So go ahead and click through and watch the next video now.